All right, we say good afternoon to Scott Reid, CTV political analyst, former advisor to Prime Minister Paul Martin. And going to start today, Scott, with the big scandal brewing here in the province of Quebec concerning, of course, the provincial Liberal Party. This started a couple of days ago, Marois Risky being suspended. And then today, Pablo Rodriguez, I guess we can call this, calling an emergency press conference. I want you to hear just this clip. So Pablo Rodriguez is asked, given all this thing, and the most recent part, of course, is having to do with allegedly buying votes for money. He was asked, how can Quebecers, we'll take a listen to this.
How can Quebecers trust your party still, given these allegations and all of the other things that are happening with the party right now?
Well, you just said allegations. That's all it is. So tomorrow morning there can be another allegation, and the day after another one.
Sir, understand what
this is serious stuff. We have, if you're going to do something and print something, back it up.
So he's talking about the imprint something, the article that appeared in Journal de Montréal. Scott, what do you make of this, and how much is this? How much are you hearing about this in Ottawa?
Quite a bit, and because Pablo's such a familiar face, of course. I myself have known him since the early 90s. He's well known. He's been in caucus forever at the federal level. So it captures the attention of everyone, and it's juicy, right? It's money, it's Quebec, it's politics, it's all of that, and it's got this strange connection or no connection. It's not clear with Marois Risky and the firing, which seemed very discordant. So it's got messy ingredients. I do think, maybe I say this because I've known Pablo a long time, I do think we've got to be a little careful. It is pretty vague what exactly is being said. Obviously, the implication is that some organizer was saying, well, listen, we sign people up for the membership, make sure you pay their membership, and then you pay them to vote, make certain you motivate them. Is that something that happened? Are these texts valid? I'm going to assume for the sake of discussion they're valid. I'm going to assume the Journal de Montréal doesn't just print them out of the blue, but it's also a sensational tabloid, so I'm going to assume as well that, you might want to poke at them. So there's going to be a lot more information that's going to come forward in the next few days. There's going to be a lot more questions. This comes at an unhelpful time because I would argue that, Pablo and the Quebec Liberals, they've had a little bit of momentum. It hasn't been a burst of momentum, but It's been a gradual sort of feed of momentum. And, this is the kind of thing that's going to cause a big distraction. For him, he's got to get this behind him, by say, January, February. You can't have something like this linger around. You want to have a long, clean season before that election in October. And you don't need this stuff hanging around.
It's interesting to me. The one thing that has not happened here, so he calls a press conference today, answer questions at length. Marois Risky, who basically got the ball rolling on this, has not been heard from in the last 2 days. Is that unusual, do you think?
I don't know. I guess, but, it's still not clear to me what, if any, connection she has to any of this, because her firing seems to be that she decided that, it was well within her purview to just fire the chief of staff, who was, a longtime loyalist to Pablo. She's his, go-to. And so now it's like, well, what are you doing? So did Risky take that step because she was conscious of these allegations and she wanted to get ahead of it? How could that be? Why wouldn't she be talking to Pablo? It doesn't really make sense. On the face of it, I actually, other than the proximity to all these allegations coming forward, not all these, but the text messages, it isn't obvious how these things would connect, In fact, nothing is obvious about what went down with Risky. I don't know why she would take the action she did. It seems strange.
Okay. Well, we'll wait. Sooner or later, we're going to have to find out because Pablo was answering questions today with respect to that and simply saying, I don't know, ask Marois. Ask Marois. So we're going to have to wait and find out. Scott, let me move on. Talk about the budget. I know it seems like old news now, but you got some key takeaways from this because it seems most Canadians could care one way or the other.
No kidding. And who wants to talk about the budget? And I know I'm not even going to talk about the budget. I'm going to talk about the politics of the budget vote. And I know that's still a day or two behind us, but it tells us, I think, three things about going forward. One, Mark Carney, the NDP come to him and say, hey, man, we're willing to dance. We'll make a deal. He's like, go fly a kite. I got no interest in making a deal, which I think is interesting, and my takeaway is Carney knew he didn't have the votes, but he's willing to say, I don't know, man, like somehow, some way, this thing is going to pass. Nobody wants an election. You don't want an election. I'm not giving you a darn thing. Usually in a minority parliament, some minority party comes to you, makes a deal, makes an offer. Carty says no. So he doesn't know anybody, anything. He was willing to gamble. Second thing, carry that logic out next. The NDP's now pissed. And so they're not going to be coming to him again. And I really think once they get their leadership out of the way in March, their attitude, when I talk to people at the federal NDP, they're like, what, we're going to win fewer than 7 seats next time? No way we're not. We suck so hard, we can't suck harder. So what the hell, man? We got nothing to fear. We're crazy people. We can't fear death. We're already dying. So I think that's going to be an interesting dynamic because, I just don't know that they're going to be that interested after being, sort of rebuffed in cutting a deal. And it's not necessarily in their self-interest to cut a deal because they think they can win more than 7 seats. Maybe they're right. I mean, how can they lose, win fewer? And the final thing is Pierre Poilievre and all the controversy with his caucus members and all that kind of stuff. And then he has two senior members of his caucus, hiding behind the curtain, this cock and bull story about how, we didn't vote, we were in some meeting, but they were there, they didn't vote. They held their votes because they weren't sure how the vote was going to go. And despite all of his bravado, despite the fact that he says he wants an election, the truth is that Poilievre didn't. And they took explicit, obvious, transparent steps to avoid an election and hold back those votes, and then tried to change them at the end just to be on the safe side because they were scared they might get busted. And that tells you something. It's one thing to say I'm strong, but it's another thing to be strong. He's the guy who's saying he's strong. He's not the guy who is strong.
To which I guess that begs the question, because it comes up every time we talk about Pierre Poilievre, especially in the wake of falling numbers. There was a study, or I guess some numbers out this week, suggesting his popularity personally continues to fall now after having gained for a while. Does this whole budget fiasco work against him in a leadership review?
I continue to think this is conventional political wisdom. Okay, so what I'm giving you is the most boring, off-the-shelf opinion. You can find this at any discount store. But the general take is that he controls the membership, that those people were anti-vaxxers, convoy conservatives. They signed up in droves for him, and they will show up, and he will get them to vote for him. So it isn't the leadership review he fears. It is the caucus. They're the ones that say, well, I've watched this unfold. I've seen this uneven response. I know this guy isn't popular. I might lose my job if I have to go into another election with him. So it isn't so much the party that he has to fear as his own caucus. And this is a guy who says, I don't care about these numbers. I'm not changing a thing. I have looked in the mirror, and I've decided I'm still in love. It's just perfect.
All right, last thing before I let you go. What is the deal here? Ottawa, Alberta. I think we mentioned this a long time ago. Danielle Smith and Mark Carney have a much better relationship than she ever did, of course, with Justin Trudeau. That's a given now. But, it's like Mark Carney's going to have to sort of square the circle of who do I want to upset more, David Eby or Danielle Smith? What's going on behind the scenes?
What's going on behind the scenes is that Carney thinks that he can secure a deal. And he thinks the deal that he can get is the one he promised Canadians, which is I'm going to build big things, and we're going to do things that you didn't do under Trudeau and didn't do for 30, 40, 50 years. So we're going to build this giant pipeline, and the bargain is this. He's going to say, in order to waive all the federal regulations to get rid of the tanker ban on the Pacific Coast, I am going to demand that they give me carbon capture, a massive major carbon capture package that allows me to say I got something out of this, Canada gets something out of it, and we got a major energy project. I think it's going to cost him real votes in British Columbia, and I think it could cost him real votes in Quebec because I don't know what you think, but when you say pipelines in Quebec, people turn their nose up, and it's going to be very interesting. And the Prime Minister's no dummy. He knows that he is taking political risk here, and he seems to be happy to contemplate it. And I think this thing's going to happen. I think it's going to happen in the next few days.
With respect to Quebec, Scott, I'll just say that I think that may have been the attitude a year or two ago. I think that's kind of beginning to change now, and that includes with the Premier himself on this whole issue of pipelines as well. Although maybe that's just LNG. I'm not entirely sure, but we shall see.
I hear you. And there is for sure a difference of opinion, and it's not where it was 7-8 years ago, but it's still, Regional politics are regional politics, man. It ain't fun being prime minister. You have to juggle different constituencies.
It ain't fun indeed. Scott, thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Introducing Bryan Adams Radio on iHeartRadio. Hosted by Bryan Adams himself.
Join me for an insider look on a wild ride through 40 years of global rock and roll.
Bryan Adams Radio. Now available on the free iHeartRadio app. Or ask your smart speaker to play Bryan Adams Radio on iHeartRadio.
Who's ready to rock?
Kids wanna rock.